What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Wild Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and we have a regular episode today. So, looking to get more guests on just with schedule. Probably not in August, so we're going on vacation mid-ish, early to mid-August. So I don't know when the next guest will be, but I want to bring that back now that I'm starting to get a little bit more time. Things have just been crazy since the first. I liked having guests almost every week, or at least every other week. So I want to get back to that. I just have to schedule it. So with that being said, today's lesson is something that when I owned my company and something we're currently doing in a wellness collective, and something I suggest for you to do. We are not going to be talking about nutrition. We're not going to talk about all of it's going to be related to that, but we're not talking specifically about these things, exercise or nutrition or anything like that. Today's topic is continuing education or learning new things. The reason for this, and specifically towards some of your goals, but also just some of your personal interests and hobbies and other things like that, is always be learning. We always want to try to learn something new every single day, or at least once a week. Otherwise, we're kind of staying stuck or we're going backwards. We want to continue to improve ourselves as a person. And that doesn't mean we know everything about anything, but we are knowledgeable in the things that we're professionals in and the things that interest us and the things that are important to us. So if you're listening to this podcast, probably going to be health, nutrition, fitness, possibly the outdoors, other things like that. So we always want to continue to learn, to get new skills, to improve ourselves. So we're doing, in a wellness collective, we started a new metric system for tracking everyone. Aaron had a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into details here. Obviously, it's not my place to tell, but there's a big change in the company. Some things as a CEO, she kind of fell off track with, which is fine. I did the same thing. So I'm here to help her with that. And so this quarter, I'm implementing metrics to track everyone. And one thing that kind of fell by the wayside was continuing education, myself included. I was one of the ones who brought it up. She brought it up. We both actually brought this up for our quarterly goal meeting, that everybody should be continuing to educate ourselves. There's new research coming out every single day, especially in the health and wellness world. There's new fad diets coming out. So we need to be on top of these things to help service our clients, you, the podcast listener, whether it's this podcast or the Stop Talking About Fat Loss podcast that Aaron and I co-host, or any other podcast. We need to be on top of things and learning. We need to improve our education on hormones. We need to do it on different body systems, everything's so we can make ourselves better coaches, better for Aaron, business owner, for me, more like operations, understanding metrics and tracking, things like that. But also, this can sound kind of boring. So also our hobbies, like also trying to improve, not being so stuck in one thing. Now, some people have kind of like one or two hobbies, and work might be like you are a work person and maybe you work out and there's not much other than that. That's fine. There's people like that. There's people more like me where you're going to have a shitload of hobbies, but all those hobbies can, and that learning can help you with improving other areas. So, the reason I bring this up and the reason I thought doing this podcast today. So I decided to get back into amateur astronomy, amateur astronomy, and decide why the hell not astrophotography. So I've always kind of wanted to get into it, but didn't think we could here in the suburbs. Turns out that's completely wrong. Also didn't realize that you can do astrophotography with just a DSLR camera. Now, I took a photography class back in high school and actually learned how to use a digital camera pretty well. Taught me all the ins and outs. I just need a refresher. So I decided to take on the most technical, scientific way to do photography. But it's been something I've wanted to do for a long time and just thought, oh, we need a nice telescope. We need this, blah, 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 where you can't spend money. So and we ended up getting a telescope. And the reason I did this was I tested some stuff out. My daughter loved using my oldest, Amelia, our going to be 3-year-old, loved using binoculars. So I have this really cheap pair of astronomy binoculars I got for hunting, but they're too big. So I ended up moving to, so they're like a 7x50. So it's only 7 power, but the 50 lenses, um, they don't fit in my bino harness and they're really clunky and kind of heavy. So I switched to a 10x42 pair of binoculars and they fit in the bino harness. They're much lighter. They're easier to use out in the field. So we just have them for like bird watching stuff. So it's like, we're trying to think of stuff to do once fall and winter comes that's outside. They love being outside. But right now we have the garden, but come fall, come winter, there's not much to do in the garden. It's cold. It gets dark early. So I was like, what could be something we could do that's fun? So turns out I found a refurbished telescope that's it's a more affordable telescope. So in the telescope world, I learned that basically anything under 200 is considered like super cheap and not really worth it. So this was like full price, like 150-ish, but I got refurbished for $60. I was like, you know what? We're going to do this. I have no idea how to use this telescope, but I'm going to learn because her birthday's not till mid-September. So I got time to figure things out. And then we're going to put like a iPhone mount on it so she can easily view. So we might need to get actually a different lens so that the iPhone, it's still something I only used it for like the second time last night. And tried the iPhone. It didn't really work all that well, but we're going to try to figure something out so she can kind of view the stars, watch the moon. The moon's going to be easy to look through the telescope with. But we tried it with the spotting scope. The moon was out a couple weeks ago, and I just put like, we have a iPhone attachment for the eyepiece, put that on there, and she liked that. She actually liked watching the doves on the power line more. But it was something like, come winter, when it's dark, like she wants to go out after dinner. So it's dark at 4:30. That's a problem because what are we going to do? And they just go to bed easier. So this was my idea. We got that. That's going to be her big birthday gift that I'm playing around with. But ended up figuring out that I thought you needed some specialized camera to attach to this telescope. Turns out, no, you can just use a camera to take pictures of the night sky. My wife has an old Canon Rebel T3. I think the current model is like a T9 or T10. It's an older model, but doesn't matter. We have tripods from hunting, from all the filming I do, especially from back in COVID. My boss bought me a whole bunch of different tripods. I had stuff to do. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Why not try this and see? So last night I was able to actually photograph the Milky Way, which barely, like where it was over the closest major city, Wilmington, Delaware. All the lights are up. I'm like, what's going to happen? But I saw pictures online and it ends up that, yeah, I was able to, over a course of an hour, photograph it, which was a really cool experience. There's still a lot to learn, but I starting to learn different techniques with night photography and exposure and all these different things. And what we're going to do is our vacation up to Maine, where the night sky is much darker, we're going to take it up there and have some fun with it there. So the first night was pretty much a total failure with it. So I ended up working on the pictures and just didn't turn out. I was like, wow, that was an hour of time. But the second, like the pictures I sent them to my wife, was like, holy shit. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool using the telescope. There's still some kinks that we're working on with it. Of course, I got a what's called an equatorial. So the mounting system is a little bit more advanced. So of course, but that was the one. It was like the nicest one for under $100 because it's refurbished. So it's actually pretty cool. Just having issues like finding shit. So I obviously have to learn that. But this is the learning process. So I'm watching YouTube videos on it, all these different things to spot that are easy so that when it's my daughter's birthday, we can go out and she can look at those things. But especially come October, November, December, and then obviously late winter, January, February, March, we can go and do those things outside when it's dark. There's something to do outside when it's dark. And actually the winter time is the best time to do it. So it gives me a reason to get outside as well in the dark, in the winter. So that's the current thing. Obviously, like I'm still doing the hunting, I'm getting the garden going, food plotting, things like that. But this is just a new thing I'm learning about in addition to the professional skills. So how does this kind of help my professional skills? Well, I'm learning photography lessons again, which may or may not be needed for social media work. I don't know if I'll need that more advanced photography work, but I'm getting the ins and outs of camera, learning more about some of the editing stuff. So if I need to go and take better photos, we can and easily know how to navigate the camera to do. Now, obviously, it's very biased towards long exposure, not what you would think of like the point and shoot type filming or cameras. But those skills could translate over, or it's just going to be fun. I'm mostly looking at for fun. It's something I've wanted to do. It was back, 5th, 6th grade. I actually wanted to become an astronomer, and then I realized how much math was involved. And at that time I was really bad at math. So I decided not to go that route. But space has always been something that interests me. So it's like, this is actually super fun. I get to do this. It doesn't take up much room in our basement that we're actually cleaning out. So this is something that I can spend time with my daughters doing. And if they're over it, then I can have fun with it. Also gets me out of the house in the winter, which I'm looking forward to. So learning new skills. Where do you go to do it? Well, depending on personal, professional, etc., podcasts and YouTube are going to be really powerful tools to figuring a good starting place. That's where I started with learning about the telescopes, about eyepieces, about how to do astrophotography. It's a really good place to figure things out and listen to multiple people. So we never want to listen just to one person. I don't recommend you just listen to me. I don't recommend you just listen to Aaron. I don't recommend you just listen to another doctor or fitness professional. I recommend you listen to multiple people. And if multiple people are saying similar things, it's probably correct. If you get the one person, and we can find multiple of them, or a minority of people who are saying one kind of outlandish thing, whereas the majority are saying other things, generally you're going to know to avoid. So like the carnivore community, keto community saying it's like, that's the optimal human diet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ignoring the studies that say otherwise and basically going against what a lot of the other professionals, including myself, are saying, that's a red flag. So same thing here when you're learning a new skill. Yeah. Listen to multiple people. For example, one guy that I'm following, who puts out really good YouTube information on telescopes and astrophotography, but is like been doing it for decades and is very biased of like, basically don't buy a telescope under $800. I'm like, I'm buying this for my daughter. This is going to get beat up. We're not spending $800 on a telescope that ultimately is going to be more. That one day, will I? Sure. Maybe. But we're not doing it for my daughter. We want something that if it gets beat up, it's not going to be a big deal. Like, it's going to suck, but it's not that big of a deal. If it gets fingerprints on it, like, just all the things. So I'm listening. I'm like, okay, let me go to other people are like, here's what you can do for like $100 investment, which is like basically what we did. Here's what you can do for a $500, $800. Like, okay, here's what you can do for a $200 investment, which is like another one. So you can, these other ones, while this person puts out good information, it's not relatable because we're not there yet, versus these other ones are, okay, yeah, you're not going to be able to do what a $800,000, $5,000 telescope will do with a star tracking mount and all these other things that I'm like, what there's so much equipment. This is an expensive hobby. I, of course, pick expensive hobbies. But here's what you can do on a low budget. Like you have this, these are your options. And that was where I was like, you know what? We can play around, take pictures of these things, have fun. And that's kind of what we're doing. So that's my new skill I'm learning. And I would like to hear about your thing. So if you're on Spotify or you're listening from YouTube, let me know down in the comments. What's a new skill you are going to learn, or after listening to this podcast, you want to learn about? Let me know down in the comments section or the poll. I forget what it is on Spotify, but that's what's going on. Also, make sure to give a follow. Join the Facebook group. There's a bunch of free stuff. There's also, we just launched a new macro guide. So make sure, I don't think it's down here in the show notes, but it's on the other podcast. It's also in the Facebook group. So if you go to the Facebook group, you can get your copy of our easy macro guide. So that's it today, guys. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on social media. I would recommend Instagram to reach out to me on, as that one I check the most. Also, those notifications don't get hidden. But until next week, guys, I'll see you then.